This is Newsroom. I greet you in the name of peace, freedom and democracy for all. These were the first words spoken by Nelson Mandela on that fateful day 25 years ago today. We are live from Johannesburg, streaming live on YouTube and available on demand on our YouTube channel. Now, today marks exactly 25 years since Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela emerged from 27 years of imprisonment as a political prisoner of the apartheid government. We'll talk to a man who had a cup of tea with a great man on that day. Then, legalizing cannabis is one of the most popular issues that users on social media want the president to address during his Senate speech tomorrow. We'll look at that. In our book slot today, we look at a book called How to Marry a Politician and Survive. Quite apt considering the week that we are in. And we close with a classic car rally leaving Bloemfontein this morning. But first, let's get the day's news from Katrine Miller.
Well, hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Katrine Milan, and let's just take a look at those top stories this morning. South Africans are today marking the 25th anniversary of former President Nelson Mandela's release from prison. President Jacob Zuma has paid homage to Mandela, saying the nation would continue to be inspired by his teachings of national reconciliation. According to President Zuma, today marks a decisive advance towards the goal to create a united South Africa based on fundamental human rights. Mandela made his first, now iconic speech as a free man from the balcony of Cape Town City Hall.
I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people.
Preparations are in full swing in Parliament ahead of the State of the Nation address by President Jacob Zuma tomorrow night. More than 700 guests are expected to fill the public gallery, from business and labour to religious organisations. There are threats of the President's address being disrupted. However, presiding officers say they will throw the book at those who disturb proceedings.
We're not in the business of speculating. At the point at which anything happens, we will deal with it as it unfolds. We will have to come to terms with it as it happens.
We are hoping the need does not arise for us to use the provision of the powers and privileges. Therefore, we are hoping that we will not have to call on any police to come to Parliament on the day of the State of the Nation address.
The Operative Governance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, says government is continuing to engage the Malamulele community in Limpopo for a solution to their demand for a separate municipality. The ANC in Limpopo says it hopes the Municipal Demarcation Board reverses its decision to deny Malamulele its own municipality. Earlier this month, the board ruled that Malamulele does not qualify to have their own municipality. Residents have embarked on a protest for the past 5 weeks.
It's unacceptable that we are preventing children from going to school. It's unacceptable that we are destroying businesses, some of which have been built over 30, 40 years. And business people are being intimidated.
A 29-year-old woman who is accused of murdering 5 babies and keeping their bodies inside a freezer at her house is expected to appear in the Mthatha Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape today. Autopsy results show that one infant could have been strangled with a shoelace and that others could have lived beyond birth. Moving to international news, and Niger's parliament has approved sending troops to northern Nigeria as part of a regional offensive against Islamist Boko Haram. Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon, Chad and Benin have together agreed to send a strong force of more than 8,000 to battle Boko Haram. Boko Haram has meanwhile staged several cross-border attacks over the past week. Remember, all those top stories and more are all available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can then also keep up to date with all our journalists across the country on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, back to you.
Thank you, Katrine. Yesterday marks 25 years since Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela emerged from 27 years of imprisonment as a political prisoner of the then South African government. On February 11, At 16:22 in the afternoon, 1990, the world watched and greeted his release from the Victor Verster prison in Paarl outside Cape Town with relief and jubilation. Mandela's release signaled the beginning of the end of apartheid and began the country's journey towards the first democratic government. 4 years later, in April of 1994, he became the first elected president of a democratic South Africa. His approach to nation building is perhaps the world's most remarkable example of commitment to democratic ideals. When faced with the possibility of a death sentence, even at the famous Rivonia trial in 1964, Mandela held steadfast to his quote, "I cherish the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities." He went on to say, "It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die for." South Africa's and the ANC's current Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, was leading the committee that facilitated the release of Nelson Mandela. Now our contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko, talked to him just to recap the events of 25 years ago.
The apartheid ruler said, "We can help you with the process of having him released to the country." And we said, "No. Your role ends when you hand him over. And from then on, we take over."
Why? What was your fear?
We didn't trust them. We didn't trust them. The one fear that we continue to have is that once Madiba was released, anything could happen to him. And they could easily blame it on us. So we wanted
full control.
Full control. And we were ill-prepared for many of the things. We were amateurish, we were new at it all. I just remember with the security aspect and the transport aspect, some of it was quite hilarious. But, you know, we managed to have it organized. For instance, we didn't really have fully trained security people because the security people that we had were MK combatants. And quite a number of them were still in exile, and those who were here had either been in prison or demobilized in one way or another. So the MDM people then had to fill in. We had to fill in, and some had to masquerade like security people. We bought them black suits immediately. So there was a budget that was put together by a number of comrades, black suits, white shirts and black ties, and sunglasses, so that they look serious and menacing. And some of them started going around with their hands hidden in their jackets as though they were carrying guns.
When they had nothing.
And they had nothing. So we gave an appearance of it all. But in the end, we also relied on the people of our country defending Madiba. But we also feared that Madiba could be crushed to death through excitement, love, and just so much happiness that our people would be exhibiting. As we saw, as he walked out of prison, the people just thronged around him, around his car. But the drive from Victor Verster to Cape Town was the most amazing drive. It was dignified. It was filled with a great deal of excitement. People wanted to see this man who was now being released. And there he sat next to Winnie, waving away in a very royal way and greeting the people. And I think Madiba was also overwhelmed with the love and the excitement that people exhibited. Now, the reception committee was in charge of the convoy. I remember Trevor Manuel, Vali Musa, and Murphy Morobe, and all of us, we had organized the convoy, and along the way, we lost Madiba's car. And Madiba just got lost. We didn't know where his car was, and the traffic was jam-packed in Cape Town. And once we had lost him, we had to look for him. And initially, we didn't even trust the traffic cops. And the comrades who were driving him decided that they should go to another house nearby to go and rest a little bit. And finally he emerged. And as he emerged, if you remember that picture where people were about to crush Madiba with love, and how Walter Sisulu was also squeezed as we went up to the Marine Parade for him to go and address the people for the first time. It was the most exciting moment, and this is when the ANC came alive.
Now, in preparing for that day, were there specific things that you wanted to do? Was there a specific message you wanted to communicate to the country and to the world about this man?
Oh yes, when Nelson Mandela was to be released, we were clear that a solid message, a clear political message had to be put across. And we wanted, as Nelson Mandela came out of prison, as he opened his mouth, it must be the ANC speaking.
Democracy and freedom for all.
But we also knew that we did not want Nelson Mandela just to be speaking to the members and supporters of the ANC. We wanted him to speak to the nation. But more importantly, we wanted him to speak to the whole world. Firstly, to thank the people of South Africa for having stood firm and not having lost hope about our situation, which was terrible and dire, but having kept the faith that we would be free one day. And also to say his release must invigorate us. We must now join in the final assault against the apartheid system. And that his release was not the real victory. The real victory would be achieved when the people finally govern. That this was one of the preparatory steps. But he also had to speak about unity. He also had to speak about a unified South African nation, so that he should give hope to all the people of our country, and not just hope to a portion of our people, and also communicate that the ANC's quest and strategic objective was for a united, non-racial, and non-sexist South Africa.
Who can forget that day? The day Mandela was released, a wave of emotion swept over the entire country. But could all of the buzzing excitement, tensions and grandeur of that day have had an impact on even Madiba's own memory of the event? Well, that's one of the questions raised after it emerged that the events from Victor Verster prison and shortly before Mandela's historic address from City Hall, the Grand Parade there, happened differently from what Madiba told us in his autobiography, A Long Walk to Freedom. Mandela originally wrote that his convoy stopped at the house of the now deceased Justice Minister Dola Omar, but in fact he had his first cup of tea at the house of an ANC activist, Salim Maza. Now, to tell us more about this historic day, Salim himself, who joins us live from Cape Town. Assalamu alaikum. Salim, thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam, and good morning to all the listeners throughout our country.
Salim, before we get into the historical context, tell us about, you were part, along with the Deputy President, Mr. Ramaphosa, part of the organizing committee on that day. Tell us about the emotions that you guys experienced. And then, did you also have the sunglasses and the black suit?
Yes, Ibn, I was part of the Mandela Reception Committee, who was tasked with welcoming back into our society and organizing his release from Victor Verster prison. One of my first tasks was to phone the then Deputy Mayor of Cape Town, Alderman Frank van der Velde, to ask permission that we use the Grand Parade so that Madiba could make his historic speech from the balcony and the steps of the Grand Parade and City Hall. And upon hearing what we wanted to use the City Hall and Grand Parade for, Frank van der Velde was on board, and we were able to organize that within 24 hours. We were then also tasked with arranging the motor vehicles, and I drove Comrade Raymond Mshlaba on the day of Madiba's release, and I was responsible for his security and well-being on the day of his release. And I think I was car number 5 or 6 on the day. And so we were dressed in our black suits and white shirts, certainly, and our sunglasses.
Salim, it's now a light-hearted view, but there's a serious matter that sort of left a wrong sort of context in the book, Long Walk to Freedom, that's now being addressed. It's something that Dalla Omar was very passionate about, that you fix this. And this is what the first stop was, actually at your parents' house. Is that accurate? And that's where Madiba had a cup of tea?
That's correct, Ibn. When Madiba was released, and as the Deputy President indicated earlier, when we reached town, there were close to 180,000 people, and they swarmed the vehicles, and we had to get out of the crowds, and we got back onto the N2, and we ended up close to UCT. And we were conferring with the leadership, Comrade Jay Naidu, Comrade Vali Musa, Comrade Winnie Mandela, and a few of the leadership was with us. And we initially discussed going to Comrade Dalla's house, and then realized, but he was on the parade waiting to receive Madiba. We then spoke about going to the Archbishop's house in Bishop's Court, but he too was waiting on the Grand Parade to receive Madiba. Comrade Jay then said, but Salim, you live close by, can we go to your house? And I, of course, without hesitation, agreed and didn't realize the significance of it at that stage. But our primary concern was the well-being of Madiba and getting him to a safe place so that he could be taken care of, relax a bit, but also so that we could communicate with the leadership at the Grand Parade. And you must recall, at that stage, we didn't have cell phones. And so we had to get landline telephones to make contact with the Archbishop and with Comrade Dalla and others. And so we got to our house, and the only person who was there was my sister from Johannesburg. And she had flown down from Johannesburg. Her flight was delayed. She was pregnant at the time. The rest of my family had gone to the parade. And she was shocked when she opened the door, and there Madiba was standing with the ANC delegation and all of us. And it was an overwhelming experience, and Madiba was made comfortable, and we had prepared the lounge, but he went to the kitchen and he requested a cup of tea, which my sister prepared. And he pulled out the wooden chair and sat himself and made himself comfortable in the kitchen. And one could just feel this huge presence in the small kitchen of my mom's.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of person that Madiba was. And he enjoyed his cup of tea. And thereafter, the leadership consulted him. They consulted with Comrade Dalla and the Archbishop and the leadership of the ANC. And it was then agreed that we will proceed back to the Grand Parade via a safe route in order for him to address the nation and the world.
Salim, we've run out of time, unfortunately. I wish we could continue talking about this wonderful story. Thank you for joining us today. That is ANC activist, and, well, on the day that Mandela was released, he was on the organizing committee to get the former state president from Victor Verster prison, which was in Paarl, about an hour away from Cape Town. They went past his house and gave, as you heard, Madiba insisted on having a cup of tea before he went to the Grand Parade. Now, earlier this week, we spoke to Palestinian struggle icon Leila Khaled, who was inspired by anti-apartheid fighters like Mandela for her own battle for the liberation of Palestine. She's currently in South Africa on a fundraising campaign for the Palestinian Solidarity and Human Rights Organization Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions Against Israel. Khalid paid homage to Mandela as a great man who not only for the South Africans but also for the world set an example of overcoming adversity.
As I told you, we consider Nelson Mandela is for all of us and for peace lovers, for those who are still struggling, for those who are still suffering. You go to our offices everywhere, you see photos of Nelson Mandela on the walls of our offices. It shows that a prison cannot be closed forever on prisoners.
That was Leila Khalid a little bit earlier this week talking about Nelson Mandela. Let's have a look at your tweets. What are you talking about? What are you thinking about on this subject? It was one of our greatest days today, 25 years ago, the day Nelson Mandela came out of prison. The long walk to freedom, as it were. Mapatu Ramakopa says, there was excitement. My dad had a braai with his friends, blasting struggle songs. He's just returned home as well. Hashtag Mandela release. AC Fick, on 11 February 1990, an already old man walked into the afternoon sunshine and dragged the whole country into the light. Couldn't say it any better myself. Naba Khadebe says, our land has come a long way. Personally, I thank God for this. His omniscience has carried us this far. God prosper us. I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy and freedom for all. Yes, I was there on that day. Today is the 25th anniversary of Mandela's release. Let's honor this day. Welcome home, Comrade Mandela. Wonderful picture. I can tell you a quick little anecdote. During that time, because there were no pictures available of Nelson Mandela, and the slogan "Release Mandela" was all we were shouting as school kids. There was a young boy in one of our schools. They asked him, what is Mandela's name? And he stood up and he said, release, release. That's the kind of time we lived in. Wonderful. Today's picture comes from Funduzi Jacobs on Mandela's release. It's that iconic picture, a picture we shall never forget, a moment that we never thought could be true. Hashtag Mandela release. Yes, during that time, it was incomprehensible that Nelson Mandela would ever be let out of prison. You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back with you after a short break.
Zoom into Africa. This is Ghana. The president is Mr. John Dramani Mahama. Ghana got independent from the United Kingdom on 6 March in 1957. The population is more than 25 million people. One of Ghana's major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is cedi.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom. When will marijuana be legalized? This is what South Africans want to know, as all eyes will be on the State of the Nation address tomorrow. This is one of the requests that recently made up the majority of recommendations to President Jacob Zuma on social networking sites following an invitation by the presidency for the country to send suggestions for his 2015 address. Well, it was to decriminalize the use of marijuana. Now, it's also been a year since the late IFP MP Mario Riani Ambrosini tabled legislation to decriminalize the medical use of marijuana after he made an impassioned plea for the president to legalize the drug. Now, to give us the latest on the developments around the bill, we are joined from our parliamentary studios by the Inkatha Freedom Party's Member of Parliament and Treasury General, Mr. Naren Singh. Very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Evan, and good morning to your viewers.
And then in studio, we are joined by the Operations Officer of the Below the Line Lobby Group, William Wallace. Good morning, William. Thanks for joining us once again.
Morning, gentlemen.
If I can start with you, Naren Singh, in Cape Town. It's been a year now. Tell us, where is the Ambrosini bill? We've heard lots of hearsay around this. Tell us, where are we and what route are we going to see this take now?
Thanks, Evan. We are at the process where we had to get another sponsor of the bill, and my party requested that I sponsor the bill. And the Portfolio Committee on Health requested a presentation on the bill, which was done to them on the 9th of September last year. What I was encouraged by is the fact that the Director General of Health and people from the Medical Research Council and everybody else involved in the health industry were there together with the Portfolio Committee to receive the presentation. There were a number of questions that were asked, questions of clarity. The process now lies with the Portfolio Committee on Health to take forward. And from reports that I received from the Programming Committee, they are scheduled to have public hearings, and then a motion of desirability would be conducted on the bill. However, the dates that were given to us by the Programming Committee don't seem to coincide with the dates that the Portfolio Committee on Health seem to be considering. So I think we'll have to wait until the Portfolio Committee on Health, in their program of events for this year, schedule public comments and invite people for comments in writing, oral submissions, invite the department which they want to do first, and then we look at a motion of desirability on the bill itself.
Naren, just quickly, the public have been very vocal on social media. The question is, when will marijuana be legalized? Has been asked to the President on the hotline that was put forward. Do you think the President will touch on this in the State of the Nation address tomorrow?
Well, I think it's a health issue. As far as the IFP is concerned, I think the reason Dr. Ambrosini tabled this bill was for government to start introducing innovative methods and look into research about the use of cannabis and cannabis products to ease suffering of people. And we are very encouraged in the last year to note that many countries around the world, including of late in Virginia and the Virginia Assembly, where they passed legislation to allow the use of two derivatives of the marijuana plant for treating severe epilepsy. So certainly there are the advantages, and I would hope that the President touches on it, because 1 in 3 people around the world suffer from cancer, and then one needs to find alternative ways of dealing with this scourge in our society, and of finding ways of ameliorating the pain that people have to go through when suffering from cancer.
William, if I can come to you here in Johannesburg, you've been very vocal as Below the Line on this. The last week's been very interesting because of the mere volume of support for the question to legalize marijuana has been the case on social media. How do you view this, and what would you like to see happen now?
I think it's a great representation that the people want to be heard on the subject. You know, we've knocked off a lot of human rights issues in the past, and they're taking care of a lot of business, but this is now the topic at hand that now needs to be done with. We know that historically Obama has had similar campaigns to Jay-Z, asking the public what he wants to be heard on, etc. So let's hope that Jay-Z doesn't just laugh it off. That's if the EFF don't prove to be an obstacle and just bomb the whole Asona. But I think it really is an opportunity for Jay-Z to once again reflect that he is a man of the people. That has always been his strength politically. So let's hear what the President has to say. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Listen to the people. They have called for it. Let's not laugh at it.
Naren, if I can get a final remark from you, the IFP, you've been identified as driving this bill and the idea through Parliament. How do you see yourself picking up the baton in the weeks and months to come?
Well, let me say, Ben, I'm very encouraged by the kind of responses that we are getting as the IFP from people around the country, from non-governmental organizations who want to even, and I've got meetings with some of them this afternoon, who want to even hold memorial lectures in honor of late Dr. Ambrosini. They also want to facilitate the holding of colloquiums around the country as non-governmental organizations. So I think there's a lot of support for what was intended in the bill from Dr. Ambrosini, which is medical innovation. Certainly we are behind the rest of the world in this regard, and we really need to be right up there because millions of people are suffering, and we need to do something about it. It's similar to HIV and AIDS, it's similar to other diseases that afflict our people, and we need to be right up front with modern research and with modern methods in helping our people get over this scourge that affects our society.
I thank you very much for joining us. That is Naren Singh, who is the Treasurer General and MP, Member of Parliament for the Cardiff Freedom Party. Of course, they've been very vocal around the bill with regards to legalizing marijuana. But William, let's just wrap up proceedings then here in studio in Johannesburg. We at Newsroom, we started this debate forum around #Dagga debate about a year ago. Are you happy with what's been happening on the ground and how this process has now proceeded over the last 12 months?
Very happy, Eben. We've seen a phenomenal amount of input from the public. It's something that the public's really getting behind. It's always been a sort of laughing matter, laugh at the stoner, laugh at the cause. But I think people are starting to realize the cost of prohibition, the effects on society, what we take away from other resources to commit to arresting stoners. So definitely a lot of progress being made. Very happy with the progress, but also very happy that it's not just the IFP that are carrying this forward. A huge amount of public support is behind this, and that we continue to see, as with the Twitter campaign was Jay-Z.
Finally, what's the kind of work that you guys are now going to put into place post-SONA to escalate this debate then?
I think the medical innovation bill is very much an evolving progress, definitely a work in progress. We've seen a lot of input go into it, so we can expect a redraft pretty soon. But I really think something also worth focusing on is the constitutional court challenge of the Dagga couple. Literally, we've seen that take it to the highest court in the land to say this now needs to end, but also not just in a medical context, in a completely legalized recreational context.
William, thank you very much for joining us today. That's Operations Officer of Below the Line, William Wallace, joining us live in the studio. #Dagga debate. That's where you can watch it. That's where you can follow it on social lines. Let's see what happens. You never know. We might be surprised tomorrow night. Thanks for joining us, William. Now we're a bit tight for time because the Citroen Club, car club that is, of South Africa, are currently on the last leg of what they call the Southern Cross. This entails the club members driving from east to west, north to south, across South Africa. The participating vehicles are 9 classic cars will be in Bloemfontein. Well, they're leaving Bloemfontein shortly. That is now this morning on the next leg en route to Cape Agulhas. Now, our reporter, Cornelo Legafola, joins us live from Bloemfontein. Good morning, Cornelo. Just set the scene for us. I understand the cars are about to leave.
Yes, good morning to you and good morning to the viewer. This is a thing that was started about close to 30 years ago. It's a Citroen Car Club of South Africa, and these cars that they are driving with now, it's about 8, 9 or 10 of them now that are here, and they are driving down to Cape Agulhas. But first they will meet the other club members at Port Elizabeth. That's where they'll be joined by them when they will be driving down to the Cape Agulhas. All in all, the cars, the total number will be about 18 after they are joined by their club members down there. But what I can also say is that this sounds very nice. It also looks very nice, but we're not sure exactly why is this being done. But with me here, I'm having the club member, Joyce Leroux, who can give us more about what is this all about. Good morning to you, Joyce. And if you can just tell us, what is this thing all about?
Well, we love to go, we're adventurous, we love to run around with our beautiful cars. They are fabulous cars. We did the 2006, we did East-West, 5,000 Ks, Durban, Joburg and Kleinseer. 2013 we did Chippies and the Limpopo border. When we got there, my phone said, "Welcome to Zimbabwe." So we're really running around, and of course this we have to complete our trip now. So it's got to be Agulhas, and it's now Agulhas. 2015 we're going to Agulhas and to Cape Town. So if you guys watch out for us, we'll be in Cape Town on the 22nd at Bloubergstrand. Come and see us. We'll be plenty of Citroens there, and we'd love to see you. And I really want to say thank you to Citroen SA. They have given us wonderful support. And guys, if you love a Citroen, now's the time to go and buy one. And come and look at our old cars. They are fabulous. They are beautiful, and we have a wonderful, wonderful time.
And how old are some of these cars that you are driving with?
Well, the Traction, which most people don't know, so you better go and look on www.citroencarssa.co.za. They are 80 years last year, and then these beautiful ones behind me, they are 60 years this year. So the cars are going well, they're beautiful, and you've got to get a Citroen, guys. We need you. What next?
and for what cause are you doing this? Is it just for fun, or?
Because we love our cars. We've got a wonderful car club, and it's great. I mean, look how beautiful they are. I won't tell you to look at the people. They are not all as beautiful as the cars.
Well, that's Mayor Joyce Leroux, who happens to be one member of this Citroen Cars Club of South Africa. That's what she was explaining to us as they are rearing to go now, because they'll be driving down the N1 to the south, where they are completing their southern cross as they have traveled all over the country. Back to you to the studio.
Thank you very much, Canelo. Very interesting. My favorite car of all time. Of course, it was voted car second in the race of car of the century, only behind the Volkswagen Beetle, for those of you that don't know. Of course, hashtag Dagga debate still continues. Let's have a look what you're saying around the issue of the legalizing of marijuana. Rude Uncle Gates says, legalize Dagga so we can make medicine for ourselves. That's kind of where it's at. Eugene Fisser says, only 8% of people in South Africa smoke Dagga. So please, presidency, don't legalize. Why do you say that, Eugene Fisser? PG Kramer says, Presidency ZA recognize the Dagga culture of South Africa and the war on Daggafarians. So in 2015, we will always be here as in the past. Yes, differing views. Travis Palm says, Presidency ZA politicians who support Dagga prohibition support organized crime, says Travis. End the war on Daggafarians. That's the hashtag. Nicola Sturgeon, time to legalize cannabis as the health properties are unbelievable. Education is needed, not ignorance, says Brian. That's hashtag Dagga debate. That's where you can join that conversation. Now, today's tweet of the day comes from Leslie Mostrop on alcohol abuse. She says, the fantasy defense mechanism helps alcoholics deny consequences and promise improvement, but it's still fantasy. Of course, after the next break, we will have a discussion around, well, 41% of women in South Africa are binge drinkers, and we drink the most on the African continent. Can you believe that? All of that after a short break.
Healthy food is not always the cheapest food option, and so making the healthy choices, the easier choices, remain a health challenge for South African children.
Bipolar disorder is said to affect 1 in 100 people.
Low back pain, the most common spinal disorder, affects about 8 out of 10 people at some point in their lives.
Back pain persists for more than a week or two. Seek advice.
I'm Dr. Cyril Mutau. Watch Health Talk every Saturday on SABC.
Well, hello and welcome back. You're with Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just take a look at those top stories this morning. South Africans are today marking the 25th anniversary of former President Nelson Mandela's release from prison. President Jacob Zuma has paid homage to Mandela, saying the nation would continue to be inspired by his teachings of national reconciliation. Preparations are in full swing in Parliament ahead of the State of the Nation address by President Jacob Zuma tomorrow night. More than 700 guests are expected to fill the public gallery, from business and labour to religious organisations. There are threats of the President's address being disrupted. However, presiding officers say they will throw the book at those who disturb proceedings. And a 29-year-old woman who is accused of murdering 5 babies and keeping their bodies inside a freezer at her house is expected to appear in the Mthatha Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape today. Autopsy results show that one infant could have been strangled with a shoelace and that others could have lived beyond birth. And remember, all those top stories and more, you can find it all on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can then also keep up to date on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Well, Eben, over to you.
Thank you. Is South Africa losing the battle against alcohol? The latest report uncovered that 41% of South African women are binge drinkers. Over the years, alcohol has been linked with violence, sometimes even dubbed as a symptom of a more serious social challenge that faces our communities. Let's just take a look at this report.
A report analyzing drinking patterns worldwide revealed that 41% of South African women were binge drinkers. It is believed that a South African woman drinks an average of 600 ml a week. Last year, reports by the World Health Organization revealed that pregnant women, especially in poor communities such as Eastern Cape, abused alcohol with the intention of harming the fetus, so that they could claim for higher social welfare payments. Today on Newsroom, we ask, is banning of alcohol-related advertisements a solution to what seems to be an upward trend of alcoholism? Or is alcohol abuse a symptom of a more serious socio-economic issue facing our society?
No, they won't stop drinking. Alcohol has been there and it will always be there, and they know of it. But like, okay, when I drink, this happens. Some drink it for enjoyment. We drink alcohol for different purposes. Like, okay, according to, I don't know which law is it, but they can't ban for SAB media, they advertise, because it's a way of making business to advertise. They need to advertise. It's not the only reason.
Well, she believes.
There's many reasons, but I do feel like adverts do contribute to that.
In what way then?
Because they make it look, okay, the whole point of ads, and is to advertise, is to make a product look, it's to entice the audience. That's the whole point of advertising, to market your product. Otherwise, you wouldn't have adverts if they didn't do that. And if you do notice that all adverts, alcohol adverts, they're very luxurious, or they do a very good job at marketing their products. I don't think it's the only reason why alcoholism is such a big problem in our society. It's not the only reason. There's many reasons for that. But I do feel like advertising does contribute somewhat. It's meant to be appealing to you.
No, but it will reduce somehow, because when you see it, like the way they advertise it on TV, they make it in a such way that it's nice, so you want to try it. So I think if they could reduce it on advertising, it will reduce it.
So Unit Blumenthal, who advocates for a ban of alcohol advertising, she believes alcohol advertisement hinders the recovery process. She's in the studio with us this morning. Very good morning to you. Just give us your views on alcohol advertising. I also understand you are the co-owner of Changes Rehab.
Yes, Changes Treatment Centre. I see the dark side of alcohol. When they come to our centre for help, we see the dark side of what alcohol does. Yet in the advertisement, the alcohol always looks supremely fabulous. It looks like it's going to get you a good job, get you on a boat to Mauritius. It always looks fantastic. But in reality, alcohol is actually very devastating. And I think as a society, we need to stop allowing it to be put as such a fantastic... We need to actually admit that alcohol is a mind-altering drug. And as a society, we shouldn't allow it to be advertised.
The effects of alcohol on the family and communities, how do you view that?
I doubt if there is one person in South Africa who hasn't been personally devastated in some way or another by alcohol at some point in their life. We have all had situations, or at least we know of a loved one who has been badly affected by alcohol. If it's domestic violence, if it's car accidents, Actually, all the bad dark side is almost always somehow related to alcohol abuse or use. Never, you know, I'm dealing with the addicts, but it's not necessarily only affecting addicts. It's affecting all of us. As a society, South Africa, it just said, is we're the biggest users of alcohol in our continent. This is affecting our life, all of our lives.
We see that the ban on cigarettes advertising has had a positive effect on the usage of cigarettes, especially amongst the youth. Do you see that as a similar scenario playing out with the banning on alcohol advertising?
Absolutely. I think cigarette is probably the best example of how a substance was discontinued, and it's not allowed to be advertised anymore, and that should be the same. Not only that, on cigarettes today, it has a warning sign. I actually think every alcohol bottle that's sold should have a warning sign on it. Alcohol is dangerous for your health. It is.
Yes, it is. Now, which other sectors are you working with to try and push for the total ban on alcohol? And tell us then also, where are we as a nation with regards to looking at banning alcohol advertising?
It's actually been already in the government. They want it. The government actually, the parliament actually wants to ban it, and obviously the alcohol sellers they want to keep advertisement. We need, as a society, to push more and more for it.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this
me.
morning. That's Unit Blumenthal, who advocates the banning of alcohol advertising. Not the banning of alcohol, just the banning of alcohol advertising, because we're using too much alcohol. We drink the most on the African continent, and nearly half of all women in this country are binge drinkers. That is a stat that's very, very disturbing. Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's have a quick look at your tweets. What are you talking about at SABC Newsroom? What are you saying to us this morning? SONA 2015. Allow South Africans to voice their views. This country belongs to all who live in it. That is a fact. Edwin says poverty, service delivery issues, and the energy crisis. 3 issues that should dominate the SONA 2015, but won't. You politicians rock, he says. Elisi says, Presidency ZA, please, Mr. President, sort out this taxi thing in KZN, especially in Escort. They're killing us. We really need BRT buses, says Elisi. There is a plea to the President to step in. The President can't do everything, unfortunately, but put your views forward. They will be heard eventually. Well, in conclusion today, finally, they say the only thing harder than being a politician is being married to a politician, along with advice on how to actually live with one, and a sort of tongue-in-cheek look at the lifestyle of South African politicians. Nia Magluaniti McGregor gives us a few tricks of the trade in a new book, How to Marry a Politician and Survive. Now, she joins us today for our weekly book club. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us. Interesting title. If I can just show people the book itself, there we have it on the big screen. How to Marry a Politician and Survive. Tell us your inspiration with this book. I think it's very apt this week, actually.
Exactly, and it's been launched at a very salient time. If next year you want to be married to a politician, or at least have a date for Valentine's Day. We all want to walk down that red carpet. But the inspiration came at a lunch party where I was sitting with the CEO of KMM Publishing, the KMM Review Publishing Company, Moletsi Mbeki, and we're laughing about politicians. And he said, you know, you should write this book about how difficult they can be. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And then as I started researching, I thought, wow, these women do it. You know, and I thought there's a 2-tier approach to this. You can there's a how-to marry one and live a really good life. Yeah. And then there's also there's a bit of a social commentary thing going on. How for a lot of women it is actually important to marry up.
Yes. I thought women had a checklist in general, isn't it?
Yes, we do have a checklist.
Tell us about politicians in South Africa. What are they like? What comes out of the book?
Well, I think a lot of politicians, and I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, but I think a lot of them have a sense of entitlement. So I don't think that you can just bat your eyelids and expect to marry a politician. He wants somebody at his side that's going to match him in some way. Not eclipse him, because men have ego issues, as we know. But
really?
Yes. But yeah, so you're going to have to develop yourself in some way. Besides, obviously, slapping on a little bit of lipstick every now and again.
Okay, I know you can't really let the cat out of the bag, but is there some sort of inside scoop on South African politicians, other than them being egocentric, which I think most men are?
Yes. Well, I think you've got to, if you are interested in living quite an exciting, we're talking about politicians in Parliament now. If you're interested in living like a life where you just like eyeing out cute bodyguards and you're living off taxpayers, then a politician is going to give you that lifestyle. And even if you're number 5 or number 6, if you agree to a polygamous marriage, you're still going to get a secretary, you're still going to go overseas. And a lot of women are into that.
Yeah, I do. I know that. So what kind of advice are you giving women in general then in the book?
I'll tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe you want a leg up. Sure. Attract him. Don't give it up too easily. Marry him, but rebrand yourself. When you marry him, rebrand yourself so that when you need to leave him, or he leaves you, you are ready to start a bit of a party of your own. That you are a brand in your own right.
Okay, so kind of standing on the corpse of a politician in a way.
Or on his holiday house.
Quickly, in conclusion, tell us, when are you launching the book and where can we find it?
It's being launched tonight at Love Books in Melville, and you'll find it at Exclusive Books and online.
Well, it's fantastic. I'm definitely going to have a read at this book because I'm sure that if you want to know politics in South Africa, this is the book you have to read. If you want to know what goes on in the minds of politicians, really, what they really think about, what they really talk about, this is the book, How to Marry a Politician, and the important tagline at the bottom, and survive. Thank you very much for joining us today. And yeah, it's a fantastic idea, I think, and it's a fantastic week for you to be launching this book, How to Marry a Politician in South Africa and Survive. Exclusive books from tomorrow. You'll be able to get it. Now, that's where we're at it. Newsroom, broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. The show repeats at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following day. We also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the whole show is always available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.